Hello and welcome to the Tease Room podcast. I am your host tonight, Becky. Welcome along. It's great to have you here. I have got three great guests for me tonight. We've got loads to get through, and it's going to be great stuff. So first of all, hello Matt, how are you today?
I'm fine, thanks, Beck. I'm a little bit sort of glad that we've got a break from Spurs for a bit now. I think we needed it, but I'm also a little bit sort of like a bit gutted that the Premier League season stopped for a bit and we're, not going to have any Spurs for a bit. So looking forward to talking tonight and, getting it off my chest a bit.
Oh, great. And Craig, hello, Craig, how are you?
I'm really good, thanks, Becky. Good to be back. Thanks for having me. Like Gibbo, I feel a bit like we've come to that half term, just the one before the summer holidays. And I'm glad for the break, to be honest. And but look forward to discussing the game tonight.
And we've got a person on for the first time tonight, Dom. Hello, Dom. Tell us about yourself. Tell us where we can find you. Welcome along.
Hi guys, lovely to be here. I thought he was going to make me sing like a song there, but maybe we'll do that later.
Initiation.
Initiation. No. That's it. Thanks everyone. Thanks firstly for having me on. I'm fairly new to the podcasting game. Started one with a mate of mine in the summer, and said don't have the experience you guys have, but I've been fans for a while. So yeah, delighted that you've asked me to join. Lifelong Spurs sufferer, and happy just to have these hopefully frequent therapy sessions with you all.
Yeah, I see them as that as well. People always say to me, they're like, oh, you've got a YouTube show and you're on YouTube. I'm like, I just come on and look at a screen and talk about Tottenham and mention Sonny a fair bit. I have no experience with any of this. We were just saying before off camera that I started this, I think, in March and then hosted the first time, I think, in June. And I've literally just come. Yeah, I've literally just come from a governor's meeting like half an hour ago. So I was like, but anyway, it's what makes us. It's like a mixture of people who go to the games and don't go to the games and live all over the world. And it's just, we're just talking about Spurs. And like you said, therapy is quite a good word for it, actually.
Yeah, my wife, when a game's finished, so I've been sat here, I've got nobody with me watching it apart from my son. We're getting all that up. She's like, just go and do your podcast and get it off your chest so you can come back down here and be normal. So yeah, it's good to have this platform to vent and get your therapy session in.
I would say I've struggled the most for motivation when we lost. Like I thought it would be a release and I'd be looking forward to, as I said, going and having a bit of a moan, but I've really struggled. When we lose, I kind of just want to go to bed and sulk.
Don't do that.
It does help though, I think. You kind of, what we try and do is try and find positives even in the negatives. And like in the recent history, me and Seb trying to explain the United away game this season, that was hard work because there wasn't much to find positive in that.
Yeah, I think it helps when you've gone to the game though, because you get that time when you come on the way home and you start to, contextualize the result a little bit and you think it through and you have that conversation with people at the station on the way home. And I think it just helps when I'm not at the stadium, like I wasn't at the game this weekend. I think it sits on you for longer.
You're right. You are. That is absolutely right. That is absolutely right. And I was saying to someone today, because I go with Jack, and obviously we've got the 4-hour drive home, but equally he's positive about everything. Even when like games are awful, he's like, well, they did this and they did that. And I'm thinking, you see through his eyes as well. That helps.
They'll knock that out of him. They'll knock that out of him, Spurs will. We've all been there. But you guys obviously go more. I used to go a lot. Circumstances mean I can't go anymore, but I am terrible at watching it on the TV because you can get up and go and walk. I can't watch anymore. I'm going, and then you walk out. I've got to go back in and watch it again. It's just sort of like, I think being there and then coming out and having the buzz of the crowd, no matter what's happened when you come out, and then you said like you have a chat with people. And you get home and you get in the car or on the bus or on the train and you can sort of like get your head around it better then, don't you?
Right. Okay, let's get into it then, because we've got a nice positive one to talk about. Oh, well, maybe the second half is positive. Right. Usual housekeepings, please, if I may. Welcome along to everyone in the chat. I can see people's names already. Hi, Kerry. We've got John there, Dave, HG's in there. But welcome along to everybody. If you can hit the like button for us and subscribe, we're nearly at 6,000. I looked today and it's like 5,900 and bits. Really close to it. Yeah. So if we could get over to 6,000 on my show, that would be great. Right. Okay. Let's get into it. So we had Leeds on Saturday, a Saturday 3:00 kickoff, which, you know, I was able to snatch Jack away from his match. So they had no goalkeeper. But yeah, Saturday 3:00, it was nice and sunny. It like you just said then, we knew it was the last one for a while, and that kind of did help, I think, because we were trying to be as positive as possible. And but then we had the starting lineup. So Matt, if you could put the starting lineup for us, please. So Dom, I'll start with you. What did you make of the starting lineup?
I mean, if we just take Emerson Royal out of it, which I'm sure we'll come on to him later on. Yeah. Bearing in mind Sonny being out injured, I'm pretty happy with that, to be honest. I don't think it gets too much stronger. Although I'd like it to get a bit stronger. Yeah, I'm fairly happy with that. It's said, although I do think we're running on fumes and the break is good. Seeing Kulusevski and Richarlison come back at the same time is a little bit frustrating because you're like, we've kind of got two of our key players back there, just at the wrong-ish time. Yeah,
I think the same. When I was saying when it was announced, I think you're right. It's a strong. We knew Romero out. We knew Sonny was out. We'd heard that Sessegnon had kind of tweaked something at Forest. So I think you agree. It was the strongest team that we could put out. Interestingly, Perisic had that 2 games, didn't he? We kind of played up front, and then he was back in his kind of usual position. Craig, what did you make of it?
I think it was what it taken Royal aside. It was what it was. For me, I didn't want to see Dyer at that right side of centre back. I think he doesn't play to his strengths. I think he's a lot better when he's playing in the middle of that 3. For me, I'd rather have seen Sanchez on that right hand side. And I know people will say, that's the back 3 that we played at Marseille and it worked there and everything else. But I just think since Dyer's moved to that right-hand side over the last few weeks, I think there's no coincidence that we've seen mistakes coming back into his game or lapses in concentration. I think that's directly linked to the fact he's playing in that side. So that's the only thing for me going into that game. I'd like to have seen Sanchez on that right side of the back 3. But other than that, I was really excited to see Kulo back and Richarlison back up front with Kane. So yeah, but we'll get into the Royal bashing later.
When they announced the team before kickoff, the roar for Kulusevski, I think I thought he would start on the bench. I must be honest. So it was great to see that he would be able to start, but I was worried that there would be some kind of like burnout, maybe at kind of 60-65 minutes. So for him to play, such a long time as well, which is quite a positive thing. But yeah, the kind of buzz around the stadium was really there because Kulusevski started, and then the same, I think for Richarlison as well. Matt, anything else to add in the lineup, sir?
No, I'm pretty much the team I thought he would play. I did want to see somebody else play. I'd have preferred. I'm not going to get into Emerson bashing, and I'll say my reasons for that later. But I did want to see somebody else play right wing back. But I thought he'd go with Royal. Point a bit like what Craig said about Dyer on the right. I think Dyer sort of been moved onto the right because I think when we've pushed on and we've had a lot of the ball lately, like the second half against Liverpool, I think he's better on the ball than Sanchez. He gives you a little bit more. He's better at passing. He put some decent balls into the box. His link-up play was better. So I think that's probably why they put him there. But he lacks the pace to play in that position for me. And I've said it before.
There's no coincidence. There's no coincidence, like Gibbo, is there? It's give and take, isn't it? What do you want more of? So do you want more of that ability for him to link up on in terms of his passing ability on that right hand side, or the more of dare I say it, the defensive solidity that I think we saw when he plays in the centre of that back 3?
Well, I think the idea was because we started a little bit more on the front foot than we have recently. So I think that was the thinking to get him pushing on maybe a bit more to, start play a bit more like Romero does for us, because he starts attacks for us, doesn't he, Romero, when he plays? And I think Dyer has been played in the middle because it protects him a bit as well. It's meant to try and protect him so he doesn't have to have players ride up against him and get, hopefully players don't get behind him as easy, because milk does turn quicker than Eric Dyer. So, but yeah, apart from that, obviously made up to see Kulusevski back. Richarlison, better option, probably up front than Lucas. and even probably Hill. So, yeah, and Bentancur Højbjerg been fantastic recently. So, yeah.
Me and Jack had a discussion on the train on the way in. I was like, come on then, Jack, let's play the game. Let's try and guess the team. And he went, Longley and Davis will both play. And I went, you're not going to play two left footers at the same time, Jack. You didn't. And then, lo and behold, they did. And that's what happened. I thought Davis, we'll come to that a bit later on, but I thought Davis was fairly solid in a game that was, fairly nuts. And I did say that to my Jack. I went, we're going to have one of those games where if both defences are poor, we're going to have a great game for the neutral. I said this a few times. We don't want games to be neutral, but that's what we've ended up with. Because we have two teams that can't defend. But yeah, Davis was fairly solid. So, right, let's go on to it. Before we even talk about the kickoff, really, we have to talk about the remembrance beforehand, because it was superb. It was impeccable. Those of you watching at home probably didn't pick this up, but the guy that normally does the tannoy wasn't there this week. I don't know whether he was on holiday or whether he was ill. So Coity took over the reins. So Coity's obviously the guy that's normally down before announcing teams and then at half time, but he was on the loudspeaker job as well. And he did sort of say, we're going to have a minute silence, or and it will start and end on the referee's whistle. And then it was immaculate. And it was, it was just being there with the way it was sort of honoured and everything. It was absolutely superb. And then the game starts, and like you just said, then it was, fairly on the front foot, and, Spurs tried to start quite well. And then almost before we'd realised, we were 1-0 down. Højbjerg I think, lost the ball, didn't he, in the middle? And
he was sort of caught short, wasn't he?
I think he gambled that he was going to win it.
Yeah. And then, he beat Hugo near post, and that was it. And it was a bit sort of like deja vu. Everyone's looking around at each other going, oh my God, it's like Liverpool all over again, because Liverpool scored more or less at the same time. Although Liverpool had some chances before scoring. What did we make of it at home, Dom, that going 1-0 down so quickly?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, you kind of want to start tuning in at 4 p.m. I've seen many people say that, seen lots of signs around saying kick-off for Spurs 4 p.m, kick-off for Leeds 3 p.m. Yeah, it was just like, here we go then. Give him that 1-goal head start and let's start playing.
What did we think maybe of Lloris? Do we think Lloris could have done better?
I think on first thought, I think for the second we'll get on to, he definitely should have done better. But this one, I saw one angle where the Summerfield kind of hit it so quickly that I just think it didn't give him a chance. But I always ask myself, would the likes of Alisson, Edison concede that goal? Probably not.
No. And while we're talking about it, Romero probably, for that matter, because we talked about this off air, didn't we? Romero wasn't there. Sessegnon was there. Sonny was there. Romero wasn't. Craig, what did you make of going 1-0 down?
I mean, the game in balance overall, I think it reminded me of Spurs of old. You score 3, we'll score 4 sort of thing. And for many of the traditionalist Spurs fans out there who probably loved it a little bit, to be honest. It was that case of the old Spurs defensive frailties, but, going from an attacking sense, we always looked like scoring. And I think that's what we got on Saturday. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't like it. I actually prefer us when we're a bit more defensively solid, controversially, maybe. But I thought, I wasn't surprised at the conceding the first goal. We've done it, consistently all for the first part of the season, haven't we? So it didn't surprise me at all. In fact, I had the bet on it that we would concede first. So I was that confident. But I didn't think Lloris could have done much more, if I'm being honest. I thought it was it's a good finish from my perspective.
Gibbo, agree with that?
Yeah, decent finish, but it sort of makes you think now, like this, just keep going 1-0 down. Happens a couple of times, and then it just keeps happening. And we've sort of got a, is it? Obviously, you can't say it's a mentality thing. Keep going, 1-0 down, because things happen in games that you can't legislate for. But it's just like it feels now like it's a little bit. It's been, well, obviously now it's over. Now we've got that break, but it's just been a bit ridiculous, hasn't it? The fact that how we keep going behind, and it was just like Højbjerg was slow to react. Aronson got in front of him, laid in Somerville, who's been playing really well, to be fair. But it's like this guy's Dyer doesn't anticipate danger, and he is slow to deal with it. And he's just got, and the kid's quick. He's made himself some space, and I think it's a decent strike. could Hugo have done better? Would have better keep, like Dom said, someone like Alisson or Edison maybe have saved it, but they've hit it with when you're in that position and he was sort of free to have a shot, wasn't he? Dyer was just sort of trying to jockey him and sort of stay with him. Really, he didn't do a fat lot to sort of put him off or stop. So he's had a shot at goal and it's gone in. So yeah, not a lot you can do about that when it's in that position. Really, should have been stopped earlier on at source, but 1-0 down again. Here we go.
Yeah. The good thing I thought about in the stadium is that it didn't really change the atmosphere much. I think, like you just said, people have got so used to it now that it just kind of almost is what it is. And because Spurs did start reasonably well, it was just kind of right, let's go again. Interestingly, the first notable chance for Spurs fell to Emerson. So there was Kulusevski was up and down everywhere, and every time he got the ball, I've said this on Twitter today, people are like leaning forward. Every time Kulusevski get the ball, he's that player that kind of thinks, oh, something's going to happen. Not this picture, but just before that, Royal had a chance where it came to him from Kulu and he hit it, didn't he? And the goalie saved it.
Yeah.
And it went out for a corner. But yeah, then we've got this incident. So Davis, who like I said, I thought played quite well. He got into a really good position on the left, kind of crossed it over. Emerson, Royal was getting into some good positions. He was standing out wide. Kane was trying to get the ball to him. I remember Højbjerg a few times. So he was getting it. It's just he still plays it backwards. But in this particular situation, he was in, yards of space. And that ball ended up in upper north, which, Craig, is near where you sit, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. My brother was at the game. He actually said he nearly caught it.
Yeah.
It was I'm trying to.
It's hard to describe. It's hard to describe.
I mean, to be, you talk about what I've noticed at games is that teams let him have the ball when he's playing. Yeah. They don't see him as a threat. So when he's got space out wide, and you saw it loads, team are happy, let him have the ball out there, and then they'll put on a half press, and then they know what they're going to get every single time from Royal, which is he's going to play it back, or he's going to do some sort of attempt of a cross, which is going to go God knows where, apart from where it's meant to go. In this situation, if you're a Premier League footballer, in my opinion, you have to be getting that on target. At least getting it on target. I mean, you look at it in that picture, it's not there's bodies everywhere. It doesn't look the easiest of chances, but you've got to be getting it somewhere on target of the goal, in my opinion. And to see it go up in the way it did, it just sums up, bless him, Royal season at the moment for me.
Just no one's even surprised though at this point, right?
No.
That's the thing. Any other player in the league who's done that, that's something that will get shown to them in a few years' time about like, this is a terrible miss you had. But him, I bet, Becky, that shot that hit on target kind of got like a ironic cheer.
Well, I'm not so sure about ironic cheer. I think, I was in the South Stand, but certainly a few of us were like, who was that? And then we're like, it was Royal. And we're like, no way. It was like shock, I think. But going back to this one, it was audible that there was groans and moans and boos, and it was fairly audible that, like you just said, it's almost like a groan when he gets the ball. But in this situation, it wasn't nice, and he did the whole sorry, the guy sorry, and then later on, I can't remember at what point it was in the game. It might have been in the first half. He had that pass where he was completely free, wasn't he? And just brought it back over here to absolutely nobody. And at that point, you could really kind of feel that sense in the crowd that people were starting to get a bit annoyed with him.
What? I'm not going to stick. I don't think Emerson Royal is a very good footballer. I don't, and I don't think the role he's asked to play at Spurs suits him at all. And I don't think he's that great at it. I feel really sorry for him. I'm sort of at a point where it's not really, I've said this a few times now. It's as if he needs protecting. Like over the past few weeks, you guys have probably been in the ground more than me, but even watching it at home, you can hear the crowd and the tension when he does something like this or he does something wrong. And it's just like the start of that game, he just looks, he doesn't know what he wants to do with the ball. And he's probably scared to sort of to do anything, be brave on the ball or anything, because like the crowd are just at him, people, not even the crowd, the people who do shows like this were on at him. And it's sort of like, it's not going to make it any easier for him. And I don't want to say, it's not going to make him any better, because I don't think he's good enough. But it's just a horrible, horrible situation, because he is literally like he's just the boo boy, and it's extremely difficult. He's just not good enough. You know what I mean?
Craig, do you think some of this is on Conte for picking him? Do you think he take some of the blame?
I think. Well, ultimately, it falls on Paratici. He made the signing in the first place. He brought him in. If you think, and I do accept though that he was signed under Nuno Ball to play a different way. It wasn't to play as a wing back; it was to play as a defensive right back. And as a defensive right back, you can't. He does a good job, right? I think no one on this panel would say defensively he offers us some good stuff. It's going forward where we're really critical of him. But he, as Gibbo said, we're asking him to do something that he's just not able to do. I don't think it's helped either that the fans are impatient to see something from Spence. I think that's really not helped his cause, because I think every season we seem to have a scapegoat at Spurs. Last season has been Højbjerg in the main, critical of Højbjerg and picked on him. Why is he there? Now it's shifted over to Royal, and unfortunately, and I do think some of what I'm seeing on social media towards him is just unwarranted and not right on any Spurs player. It's not his fault. He's what you cannot say and you can't criticise is he goes out there and he does his best, doesn't he? He always puts in his best. He turns up for games, better than some players.
As we'll come on to later. Yeah.
But, he tries. But he's being picked for whatever reason. Conte's picking him, putting him in the fire. But I do think Saturday, with the reaction from the crowd, it felt like a bit of a turning point in terms of, can Conte continue to keep putting him in the team? Because
it happened at Bournemouth, though, Craig.
Say again?
Craig, they cheered him off the pitch at Bournemouth.
I know.
And he got booed when he came on against Sporting Lisbon. Like, we just scored, and there was groans around the stadium.
That's not going to help anyone.
Though, the ironic thing about the Sporting Lisbon game is that goal that, if that goal had stood, it was Emerson that was being psychoanalyzed and zoomed in on and all of that business. It was him that made the cross. So for somebody who actually isn't supposed to be any good going forward, he made that goal for Kane. The thing as well go on.
Sorry, Beck. The thing is about it. I mean, he has really struggled and really not unfair criticism, but treated unfairly, probably Emerson. But Doherty, I don't rate Doherty, but he does more. He must be better. And like Craig said about Jed Spence, nobody can tell me that Jed Spence couldn't do. If he was going to be worse, it wouldn't be a fat lot worse than Emerson. But the kid can't even get a chance, and it's just as though like Conte's stubbornness to not pick Spence is the same as his stubbornness is that he's going to pick Royal. Do you get what I mean? It's like, it's sort of like, and that like people and a lot of fans now are just going, what's going on? Why does he keep getting picked? Why can't Spence get a game, or Doherty get a game over him? What's going on? It's as if it is just him being stubborn.
I just don't know why he's willing to die on this sword, on the Emerson sword, because even just from a PR perspective, when like the pressure was building up on him, like even just from that perspective, like putting Emerson in isn't going to help things. But I think you guys have said it all really, and said everything. I think like at this point it's kind of borderline negligible, and it's you need to protect him.
Yeah, that's what
you need to.
Yeah, and everything I keep reading, and I've read some comments and hear people saying they feel sorry for him, and then you see because he's young, and then the other people going, no, he's got not good enough, get rid.
But
if he's doing everything he's been told in training, now the rumours about Spence's attitude, and I can imagine Doherty is someone who's got a good attitude in training as well. If they're doing what Conte wants him to do from a defensive point of view, that's all he's going to be, because he knows his defence is struggling. He knows we've got Romero's out, and there's been areas of weakness there, and Conte will argue that he's there defensively, which I think, like you said, none of us have an issue with it. The thing that I don't like about it is there's this song that's going around as well, isn't there? I haven't actually heard it, I have to say.
Can't defend, he can't attack.
But that's not fair either.
No, and his performances have got worse since the crowd of those songs have started appearing, and since he's been sort of like booed off. Which is
completely understandable,
right?
Isn't it?
Understandable, yeah. And there was times where he sort of he hadn't been. We all knew he wasn't great, but sometimes he'd have a game or do something. Emerson weren't bad today. Emerson's played all right, or he's done well there. But over the past sort of month, his performances have got worse, and I think it's no coincidence that it all. And in my opinion, when that type of thing happens, and you've got someone like Doherty who's not really worse than him. If anything, he's probably better. Take the guy out the firing line. That's part of man management. That's part of managing, and it just and I can't understand why he doesn't. But there must be a reason. Conte is.
Yeah,
Conte is the man. But
and when we look at it, who do you think will start the first game after the World Cup?
Emerson Royal, guaranteed.
Royal. And you know what Conte will say? Because he's been here, he's been training. He's fully refreshed.
Well, but so is Doherty and Spence. All three of our right wing backs will be not going to the World Cup.
How bad must Spence be in training?
I just think there's more to it, though. There's got to be more to it, Dom. I don't know what it is, and we don't know what it is. Yeah. We're not citing what it is.
I'm not. Yeah, Conte's forgotten more about football than I'll let him know.
Spence came on against Forest towards the end. Tottenham was shocking. Spurs was shocking. But even in those minutes that Spence was on, he got into some positions. He showed a bit of dynamicism. He showed that he could, that sort of role is what he's all about. And then not even a sniff after that.
Yeah, John makes a good point in the comments about how Seth. We've talked many times about Seth, haven't we? About how he's a confidence player, and if he can stay fit and he trusts his body, do well. And I still remember the Southampton game. He crossed the board, didn't he? Was it for Dyer? And and then obviously we talked about Doherty, and then he got injured, and he's come back, and then this year with Emerson, kind of things. But we don't know what's going on behind the scenes, do we? You hear all sorts about Emerson being moved on, and Seth might go out on loan again, and he just and we were saying about the other day about how the conspiracy theorist is that the England team was told 2 weeks ago, and that's pretty much since then. That's when Dyer's gone shocking because they're worried about getting injured. So we just don't know, do we? Right, let's get back to the game because we need to go on, Craig.
Becky, sorry, I do think there's truth in the World Cup thing. I just think you see it's too much coincidence about, and not just for Tottenham, for all players leading into the World Cup. They're so fearful of getting injured for it. And I think Son getting the injury he did a week ago, wouldn't have helped those players that were getting called up for England or whatever country.
Well, when it happened to Richarlison, didn't it? And how Richarlison broke his heart, didn't he? Because he thought he was actually out. That would have affected him. We said that before. Yeah. Right. Okay. Let's talk about our first goal, our equaliser. So I seem to remember we had 3 consecutive corners, and I think Kulusevski took the first one, didn't go very well, and then from then on, Perisic took them all. But when the ball came over, we had a great view of it. I said to Jack, he's going to score that. So when Kane got the ball and that kind of turn and in, you just knew instantly. And to be fair, from where I was, I didn't really see the kerfuffle with the goalie. It's only when I've seen it back. It was like when Bentancur scored against Sporting, wasn't it? They tried to argue that he kind of jumped on him. But yeah, Dom, what did we make of the equaliser?
Oh, perfectly good goal. No problem there. No, I think if I was in the Leeds end, I would have probably wanted a foul, but keepers get so much protection, right?
And he's little, isn't he, as well? He's not particularly that, he's
not covered himself in glory in it, but there was one angle where it did look like he'd had a push, but swings and roundabouts, right? Later on, Bentancur, I think, gets fouled. The Lloris and Wilson one, which we didn't get, I think... in the long run.
Did it go to VAR, Gibbo? Did it go to VAR?
It did go to... They did. I thought they did. I'm sure they did.
Because there were no VARs. Nothing came up in the stadium this game. Nothing.
Well, they can't have nothing. That. Do you know what? You're just sort of watching it, and it's sort of like now you're watching the game, and like stuff like that happens, and you just see the players all talking to each other, and you think, is it So, yeah, HG says here, it did go to VAR, and I can't believe they give it. I genuinely can't believe they give it. Like, I know, like, I agree that keepers get far too much protection, and but unbelievable, really. And VAR, because obviously we've had some bad VAR decisions against us, but this is just. I'm glad it didn't go against us, but it's just shocking. Some of these VAR, which is another conversation for another time, but this VAR is just shocking.
He didn't have his arms all over him, did he? It wasn't one of them ones where he kind of jumped above him. Like, it was that kind of, they kind of did that, didn't they? So it was that way. They kind of went like that, didn't they? The same sort of height.
No, nothing in that. Nothing in that. It was just one angle from behind the goal where it did look like a tactical.
Because Longley ended up in the net, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm surprised, but I'm glad. Don't matter now, does it?
It's like you just said. We've had enough of them.
Yeah, I would have been frustrated if it was given against us, if we didn't get the goal, I'll be honest. But then equally, if I'm a Leeds fan, I'm probably frustrated it was given as well. So it's one of those. But we deserved a bit of VAR luck.
Yeah, absolutely did. Okay.
Great finish.
Moving on then. It was great turn and finish.
By the way, Kane at his best, isn't it? When you say Kane at his best, the way as
soon as he got the ball, I was like, "This is going in." The way he turned and span, it was all so quick. But you just like, it's Kane. The next thing you're looking for is the net to bulge. That was it, really.
Yeah. No one will ever remember that goal, but like that's just classic Kane, like the instinctual finish.
Yeah,
not an easy finish either.
No, and he does the defender, doesn't he? Because I know the angle when it doesn't fit us on the goalie. He kind of a bit like the Wolves goal, where he kind of twists and turns around him, loses his man, spins in. It happened so quick, but just like I said, so clinical. And then the guy kind of progressed, and there was an incident I noticed down by the corner flag where Kulusevski got elbowed. I haven't seen a replay of it. Nobody's shown it on any highlights, but he went down for a long time. I think Perisic or Dyer or something like that went over to him. Kane was talking to the ref, and then he was holding his face, and then. When they do do you want the physio on? And he said no. And then Kulusevski got up and sprinted to the ref to say, why didn't you give it? And
I mean, I love Kulusevski, but he can hit the deck a little bit easy, can't he? Brilliant player, but he's, sometimes he gets a little brush and he goes down like he's been shot. But...
Yeah. And then so the game's got carried on, and then I literally, and it felt like I jinxed it. So apologies. I turned to Jack and went, Jack, it's not going to be 2-0 down at half time. We go in as a draw, and it's all to play for. And then it felt like it absolutely immediately after they scored. It was a corner over on our side. Dyer made the block, didn't he? I remember. They had the corner, and it came out. Kulusevski, I think, headed it back, and then Kane headed it back up into the air backwards, and then he kind of turned and volleyed it, didn't he? And that was it. And everyone's looking at each other going, oh, for God's sake, not again.
Great finish. That was a really good finish. Maybe, he's caught that well. Maybe Hugo should have done better, but good technique. Hit it, as it's come down, he's hit it well. Probably Lloris should have got to it. But it was just all a bit messy again, wasn't it? It's just all a bit sort of like Dyer's gone. Yeah, flat-footed. Dyer's gone over there, and this guy's come from behind, and nobody's with him. And there's just a cluster of players all sort of watching the ball in the air, and it drops down, and he, drills it home. It's just all a bit off. But you were right, Beck. We weren't 2-0 down. We were 2-1 down. So,
but like I said, everyone's kind of looking at each other and going, "Oh God, here we go again." And then went to half time to meet a few people, and we were talking to John. And then John must have seen exactly the same tweet as me. And I both said that Leeds had 4 touches in the box in the first half, and scored from 2 of them. So it wasn't a game where they were had a lot of possession. They were playing on the counter attack. I said after the game to somebody that they reminded me of a team that if they can shore their defence up, they'll be all right. Like Leicester, they can score. So because they can score, they'll be okay. I wasn't surprised that Leicester have kind of moved further up the table because Leicester can score. You can see that in Leeds. They've got quite nice kind of interplay, and they're quick. And we just looked very sluggish for that goal. And kind of went in half time 2-1 down. And then the boos, like it says here in the run sheet, the boos were not like the Liverpool game at all, because you could tell that there was some, there weren't any refereeing decisions. I do think the boos at Liverpool game were aimed at the refereeing decisions equally as much as the team. But if there were boos, it wasn't particularly aimed at the players. I didn't think at all.
Who do you think it was aimed at, though, Becky?
Probably Royal or Conte.
Do you think it's just a whole? I mean, I don't like the booing, but do you think it's just a whole? Fucking hell, we're 2-1 down again, and just people.
But that's better though. People sort of saying that to each other is what most people did when they went 2-1 down. Everyone's looking at each other. Those that didn't swear just went, and it's that sort of.
See, I think it's a few things. It's almost a perfect storm with the booing. It's about the product of football that we're being served at this moment in time, and people thinking, I'm not enjoying it. It's not the Spurs way. It's not how I want to see us playing football. And then you've got that coupled with the fact that the narrative around we're paying the highest price ticketing and drinks and food, etc., for what is being seen as an inferior product. And I think that's what the booing is at. I think predominantly, and it is only a small section of the crowd.
Yeah,
it seems to come from the same area of the stadium every week, is what my observation is of it, Becky. And I think all that's fine. People can have an opinion on that, and I'm not going to say whether personally it's not for me for booing, because I don't think it has a positive impact on the team. And Kane's come out and said as much, hasn't he, recently in an interview? But people have got a right to express an opinion about, the product of football that's being dished up, or the price that they're being asked to pay. But ultimately, they've got a choice. If you don't like the price or you don't like the product, don't pay for it. Don't watch it. You've got a choice, But if you're going to, for me and my perspective as a season ticket holder, if you're going to go to the games, support the team, get behind the team. That's why we're there. It doesn't matter if we're 2-1 down at half time or whatever. Get behind the team and back them, because they need us at this point. They need us to do it. And let's be honest, at 2-1 down at half time, yes, I was disappointed in the manner in that we ended up being 2-1 down. But did I think at that point we was out of the game? Of course I didn't. History tells us this season that we're never out of a game. And this game, as it panned out, was no different. So we've got 45 minutes of football to play. Carry on, back the team, get behind them and see what the second half produces. And that's the only thing that frustrates me at the moment, is it felt like, and I wasn't at the stadium, as I said, Becky, you was there, but it felt on Saturday from what I saw, it was close to being toxic at points. It felt like it could turn over and boil into something else. And I'm glad it didn't seem to transpire that way. Because
it helped that Royal went off. I think it did in the first half, and we talked last week the Liverpool game about that when Dyer was making headers after the mistake, there were ironic cheers, and there were a few ironic cheers for Royal. But I think because he made the changes fairly early, that avoided that.
But I don't know what Dom thinks. Well, I know we let the 2 sloppy-ish goals. And they had a couple of other chances where they broke away. But on the whole, playing football-wise, compared to some of the poor first-half performances we've seen, I don't think we were that bad. I'm not saying we were really good, and that I think we weren't that good, but I don't think we were that bad.
Gibbo, I completely agree. We had a few defensive frailties this week.
Yeah.
Compared to what we expect with the Conte team, the way we set up, we're not being a defense. I mean, it's really interesting, by the way. I'm just reading some of the comments, and I'm sure, Becky, you'll pull some out about fans don't have a right to expect us to play the Spurs way and football's to dare to do, etc. Do you know we've scored more goals than we ever have at this point in the season? Ever. Yep. I mean, that's a phenomenal stat, and I think it comes back to the whole thing about what's going around our club at the moment. We've scored more goals than we've ever scored. We've got arguably the best manager we've ever had in our football club, in terms of what the best we can get at our football club anyway, at this point in time. We've got a plan. We've got a structure in place. We're top of the league in the Champions League. We're 4th in the league. At the World Cup, arguably having a very tough first half to the season. Everything's positive, right? Everything's positive. We've just beaten, Leeds 4-3, scored, 4 good goals. We've got Kulo back from injury, Richarlison back from injury. everything going into the second half of the season after the World Cup is looking rosy for Spurs at this moment in time. We've got reason to be positive and buoyed, and that for me is, I think we've got to take stock of where we're at as a football club compared to where we were with Nuno Ball not too long ago, and look, be positive, put a smile on your face, guys.
Yeah. And I thought, like you just said there, we would have taken that before kickoff at the beginning of the season, because if Chelsea had managed to hold on for a 0-0 on Saturday in the late kickoff, we would have been third, and and we're only now a point behind Newcastle as it is. And United got lucky yesterday with their last-minute winner. We'd have been 6 points above them. So it's just, the whole negativity does it. It's difficult because it's this idea that, like you just said, people have a right to voice their opinion. The problem is even if there's a tiny little section of booing, because of now it all going on social media and it being mentioned almost immediately, it's almost like it kind of escalates into something that wasn't really anything. There was hardly anything. And it certainly wasn't like the Liverpool game. The Liverpool game was slightly different. Liverpool had those 3 chances and then they scored, and then we came into it second half. Like you said, Leeds didn't really do a great deal. Like that one save, didn't they? I think when it was still 1-1 when Lloris made the save, he kind of tentatively came out towards the edge of his box.
Somerville went through again, didn't he? Somerville went through again and poked it, and he saved it. But I don't think we played that bad. I think it's probably more just frustration of here we go again, 2-1 down. I think that's pretty much what it is. I'm not saying it's right or wrong.
No, but like Craig said, we're used to it. So I don't see why it's such a shock. And to be fair, I've heard it at other grounds. When you watch other matches and a team that is losing at halftime, you hear the boos then, and you think, I don't know, it's almost like unless they go in, maybe not, but it's almost like if you're not going in drawing or winning, the team feels like it's their right to boo. And it like you just said, I think it's a kind of cauldron of a lot of things. What's your take on the booing, Dom, and that kind of way it is?
Well, I don't think it's a new phenomenon. No. If you go back and look through my podcast episode titles, I think second or third game of the season, one of the episodes was called "To Dare Is to Boo," and I think we kind of, in the short-term mindset that football invokes, that we forget that this time last season or just before under Nuno, it was about as toxic as I ever remember it being at Spurs. So Conte is kind of like the best plaster you'll ever buy, in the fact that he got us from the worst to, in the space of 6-7 months, some of the best you felt behind the team. So I don't think that's really ever gone away. Maybe some of that frustration isn't. Well, it's a perfect storm of football's not great. There's still that lingering bitterness to the board, and then as soon as those results start to turn as well, coupled with the football not being great, then these people that are unhappy and are paying the high money, feel that it is their right to boo. Whereas I'm of the same belief that what good is it actually doing? Yeah,
Dave's put in the chat about, and I agree with this. I think this one here is that if we play like that against the top 6 teams, we're going to get hammered, and I think that is the worry. I think, like we all agree, I never felt we were out of it on Saturday at all. I did think we were at Liverpool. Is that, and Newcastle actually. So it was this idea that we were always getting back into it. I think people feel that if we're going to play like that and we're going to start slowly in those games, then we aren't going to get the points that we need for the teams above us. However,
on what basis though are we making that assumption? So let's look at this. So let's look at this season. Chelsea away. What was the score?
1-1.
1-1.
2-2. Sorry, 2-2. 2-2. Sorry.
We got a draw at the Bridge. Arguably, somewhere we go and never get points.
We were terrible that day.
We were terrible, but we got the point. But history doesn't dictate how we play. They see that we got a point at the Bridge.
Yeah.
Yes, we lost to Arsenal away. We never win Arsenal away. Very rarely do we get anything out of Arsenal away. So but
we can't let that continue, can we, Craig?
No, exactly.
I know exactly what you're going to say. I know exactly where you're coming from, and I see where you're coming from.
Yeah, and I think it's just about putting a bit of perspective to it and progress.
Yeah.
We Man City last season. We did double over Man City last season. Yeah. Playing, same team, same formation, same system, same manager. I think there's variables that have been at play in this first part of the season that are created to the football that we've seen. And I think there's a really interesting interview with Lloris. I don't know if anyone's read it. I saw it earlier on today where he talks about what's created the way that we're playing at this moment in time, and he talks about it and articulates his view on it. And I do think that we will see a return to the football that we saw at the end of last season. We will. Yeah. And don't forget, last season, we talked about it, Gibbo, on the pod previously. Just go back to the Middlesbrough away games and that period of the time in the season when everyone thought Conte was going to walk after a few months in the job, and the football we were getting served up then was absolute dross. Yeah. And when we turned it around, we had a fantastic end to the season. There's no evidence I see in front of me that suggests we're not going to see that again.
I was just going to say the same thing. The World Cup is here. I do think he's asking them to play at a different intensity, because you see that they're sort of a few yards off the players, and in the second half they are much tighter to them, and that's not a coincidence. That's not him shouting at them at half time. There's a reason for that.
I think that's been said, Becky, hasn't it? And I also think, I don't know what you got. I mean, I don't want to use it as an excuse. I don't use it as an excuse. I do actually like to see. I would prefer. Conte's great. We've got decent players. I supported Spurs because of this brand of football they used to play, the style of football they used to play, which is irrelevant, because we didn't do in the 90s. We were fucking awful, so I do want to see us play better football. But I know that's all like sweetness and fairy tales and stuff like that. But we are still very much a work in progress, aren't we? I mean, if Perisic's been good, his dead ball delivery is good in that. But going forward, we're probably two top class wing backs short of what we want. We're probably one, possibly two top centre backs short of what we need. And going forward, if we're going to push on, which is what the aim is to do with the manager and the board and the fans, we're going to have to do that. That's where we need to go. Some of these players have hit a ceiling and we can't get out of it. And probably you look at it, the keeper now, Lloris is getting on, so we're going to have to move on from that as well. So we are still, with all these other issues that are going on, we are still very much a work in progress. We're still very early in Conte's reign. If you can remember back when we spanked Liverpool 4-0 at Wembley, that was in that first season Klopp had there. His first year, they were very much a work in progress until they bought in bigger players.
And that's the point that Conte's saying. He's trying to say, isn't he, when he has pressers, and he says, it's not. He's almost. I read somewhere today that he's almost did too well too quickly. So we went on a fairly good run, didn't we? We didn't lose at home until the Newcastle game or whichever one it was, and it's almost like that worked against him, because he's now having to sort of calm everyone down and say, well, we shouldn't be where we are and all of that sort of thing, and that's the problem, I think.
I totally understand it all, and I do want to see, I want to see Man City football or Liverpool football at its best. I watch other teams sometimes pick, at times when Leeds are passing it about, little technical players passing it about, I'm like, I wish I could see some more of that. But, that ain't going to happen. We're not
haven't got
do
a squad
that.
for that yet.
We haven't got those players, and we have got to build towards that, and we do need more transfer windows, and we do need to get rid of some of the players who just aren't good enough to take us to the next level if we want to get to the next level. And that's just the way it is. And it does frustrate me, I'm not going to lie, because I do want to see better football, but I'm also a realist. And it just, like you said, now we're all said and done and the dust settled, fourth in the league, through to the next round of the Champions League. FA Cup.
We've done all that, Gibbo, by playing bad. We've not even started. We've not started. We've not come out of second gear this season, really. And, I think the start of playing stuff, and we've talked about this before in the pods, and I know it really splits opinion, but, no one was complaining at Arsenal at home last season, the way we were playing football. And someone's made a comment about the low block. We played a low block in that game. We played a low block and we got them on the break, and no one was complaining. I was at that stadium and everyone was joyous and everything was great. And not just that game, but the games leading up to it, the form we showed. That's the same system. It's the same players that we've got now. It's the same approach. Yes, we've just the World Cup, I think, has really for whatever reason, it's created problems for us in terms of starting. I do believe, as Becky, I think you've said, when we come back from the World Cup, we'll see a different Spurs. I really believe that. And I think the January transfer window, we will strengthen one or two players, I believe, and then we'll go on and then we'll finish, as I said at the beginning of the season with Gibbo, we'll finish comfortable top 4. I've got no doubt.
Right, okay.
Can I just make a... Sorry, Becky, it's only a quick one. I got a feeling that we will finish top 4, but I don't think we'll beat any of the big sides. I think they'll beat us all, but I think we'll finish top 4. I said this a few weeks ago, just because of where we are at our stage at the minute. I think we might beat Man U at home, might beat Arsenal at home, but like the big games, like we've lost away we'll lose away at Anfield, and I don't think, but I don't think we've got, we always beat City, so in our heads now we know we can beat them, so we don't do too bad against them. But I think we'll lose quite a few of the big games, the majority of them, but I still think we'll finish top 4.
We'll beat Arsenal at home. I've got no doubt.
Well, we'll see. I think they're different kettle of fish at the minute, but I hope you're right, mate. Yeah.
I need some of this positivity. I am already scared for that one.
We will beat Arsenal at home, guaranteed. I'll put money on it.
Okay, let's go back to the Saturday game. So Davis equalised. So there was some good work, wasn't there, from Kulusevski, and then the shot came in and Davis sort of hit it through what felt about 9 players and the goalkeeper. Dom, what was your take on the equaliser, the second one?
Yeah, it was, scrappy, but Davis hits it well. The keeper makes a decent save from Kane. Was the second goal the one that Emerson actually did a good quick throw in to release?
Yes,
Kulusevski. Yeah.
In the interest of balance, like let's say, he's done one thing good this season. But yeah, bit scrappy, but it's one of them. You take it. And at that point, I think we thought the tide had turned. But
and we thought we're going to kick on because. I think by then Mora was already warming up on the touchline, so you kind of had this view that there were going to be some substitutions. Yeah.
It was great play from Bentancur, not Bentancur, sorry, Kulusevski, wasn't it? Pulled it back. Kane's had that shot. It's been blocked. That would have been a great goal if it had not gone in from him.
That's right. It was the Kane one, wasn't it?
Yeah, he just sort of shaped his body and got the shot. The key, it hit a defender, didn't it? The keeper didn't save it.
It doesn't nutmeg the defender, and then it went through the keeper. But Davis has scored a couple of goals this season, hasn't he? He scored against Newcastle, and
he's caught that really well. He's caught it really well. Obviously, it's gone through the keeper. The defender behind him, it's sort of ricocheted back off the keeper and sort of gone in, hasn't it? Right?
He'd literally just come on.
Luke Ayling,
first touch.
But But all Kulusevski, like you said, fair play to Emerson Royal, quick thinking. Kulusevski gets down the line, doesn't he? Brilliant.
Yeah, and then forgive me if I've got these in the wrong order, but it seemed like all the subs happened at the same time. But first of all, he takes Longley off for Sanchez, which surprised me.
I think he just wanted to put some pace out. I think the lads on the pod said, Beck, didn't Doherty and Sanchez come on at the same time?
Was it? They may have done, yeah.
And basically put Dyer back into the middle and put Sanchez on the right. And I think it was Seb who said possibly it was because Doherty's not as quick. So Sanchez gives you that little bit more pace on the right-hand side. Because, if you put Doherty and Dyer there.
Yeah, and it was audibly the cheers were... the cheers, jeers, whatever they were for Royal going off. But it just felt to me then, it was almost immediately after that, they scored again. So we adhered to it before. There was the incident in the middle with the foul on Bentancur. But if we go back a little bit first, Bentancur got booked before this. So he kind of fisticuffs with somebody and the ref booked him, and I turned to Jack and went, there's his fifth booking. Whether he planned it or not. So he won't be there for Brentford away, which, I think gives him a little bit of extra rest. So then almost a substitution seems to happen. In the next minute, the ball, they foul on Bentancur, or whether it wasn't a foul, and then it comes across, and it was Sanchez that was there, and Craig, should Lloris have saved it?
I don't know. I'm not a goalkeeper. it's
great,
easy to say, isn't it?
Very diplomatic.
Yeah.
That's a great finish. It's like the only place he could have put it.
Was Sanchez too far away from him though? Shouldn't he got closer to him?
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah.
I think it's a different question, isn't it, about Sanchez's defending versus whether Lloris should have done it or better or not. But it was a good finish. Like I say, it's easy to look at a shot and say, oh, maybe he should have done better or should have done better. But I've got nothing but praise for Lloris. So if he didn't save it, it was just too good a shot for him.
It just seemed to happen all of a sudden. Leeds weren't really doing it. Then the next minute we're 3-2 down, and then like you, Don, was saying about the kind of toxic atmosphere. I think that
it's never far away.
Someone behind me and went, "Well, he's just made defensive substitutions, and we're supposed to be going for the win." And the next minute, Leeds have scored, and that's a fair point, isn't it, Gibbo?
I think we've lost the ball in midfield. I'm not sure if it was a foul or not. Modern day, they can get given. We sort of, when Bentancur's gone past the first man, we're trying to push on. Doherty's sort of pushed upfield. We've lost the ball. They've played it early. Rodrigo's got into space. I don't even know if I really blame Sanchez for being massively out of position. I think he's got himself in space. He's took the shot early. Great strike. Really good finish. Should Lloris have done better? I don't know if he could have done better. But I thought it was a really good goal, to be fair, from Leeds. Just ball broke down. They break away, get and score a decent goal. And I think that's what that was. Fair play to Rodrigo. He's done really, really well there at that point. So, and I don't think you can get into Sanchez about that really too much, because he's obviously another one that people tend to get on his back, don't they? And I don't think he's a great player, but I don't think he was really at fault then. And I think he made both those changes because he was bringing Doherty on, because he was bringing Emerson off and he was putting Doherty. I think he's complemented bringing Doherty on, by changing the dynamic of the back three, because neither Lenglet or Dyer are particularly quick, are they?
And I think, thankfully, Conte, after a few times, or more than a few, has learned his lesson that you can't play Emerson and Sanchez together, because it's a recipe for disaster in terms of, as you said, I think it was you, Craig, that said teams don't press Emerson, but when they see Emerson and Sanchez together, it's the golden ticket, because they just wait for them to get it and just like arc their press in that way.
The other next good substitution, though, is he brought Basuma on, didn't he, for Richarlison, which we've got to 57 minutes in the podcast and really not talked about him, because
Richarlison, because there's nothing to talk about.
No, I think he closed down a few tackles.
He got his shirt dirty.
To be fair to him, he did more when he was on the side as a used player than he was when he was on the pitch, if that makes sense. He closed a few balls down, won a few free kicks and corners, throw-ins, that sort of stuff. Kind of pressing in the corner stuff, but nothing of note in the box. And I felt a bit sorry for him when he was subbed. He did kind of judge off a little bit. You could tell he was disappointed. But
it's another one, isn't it, Beck? He's
is he in the right position?
Yeah, he's come back from injury, probably frustrated with the whole experience at Spurs. I think he wants to play down the middle, doesn't he? But obviously, when you come to Spurs, that's few. Those chances are going to come few and far between. He played on the right. I don't think he's very good on the right. I don't think that's ever been really his position. I think he's played on the left more. If he's played and he played there, and I don't know. I said this. I think Richarlison's a good signing, but I think he needs to be the guy who comes in and gives Kane a rest. I think that's the role he's got to play. But we rely on Kane so heavily that that's not going to happen. And obviously, Son's out. That's the sort of best role for him. Or maybe if he plays on that left, we need to be a bit more free flowing. I don't know, but I don't think he was great. I mean, and he has been out with injury, so don't want to sort of like.
So he goes off. Basuma comes on, and that enables Kulusevski kind of briefly went up front, but really
it allows Bentancur to go.
It made Bentancur move forward, and from this point on, it will all be about Bentancur. So, like I said, Bentancur got booked. He's got his first booking. He's got his rest for the Brentford game. He then got fouled when they went 3-2 up, and then from that point on, because Bissouma came on, it was all about Bentancur, Kulusevski as well. But so yeah, then the equaliser, next equaliser, the 3-3 equaliser, was Doherty put a really lovely cross in, didn't he, from the right. And again, me and Jack, when we were in the car, because we were on fantasy teams, I used to tell Jack to pick up my phone, and I've got Kulusevski, Son, and Kane in my fantasy team. Obviously subbed Son out. So I was like, Jack, see who the assists were. And the only assist was the final assist, the Kulusevski assist, because they all came back off either balls headed away or deflected shots, or, you know what I mean? So for this one here, it was a nice cross from Doherty. It kind of someone headed out, I think, didn't they? And then Bentancur just sort of slotted it in. The thing that was funny for me is they never really saw any celebrations for our goals, because every single one was an equaliser. So it was like, right, get the ball, pick the ball up, run back to put the ball in the centre circle. So there was no kind of, we're in the stadium, you like to see where they celebrate, and there wasn't any, because it was all like, right, ball back to. The only time they celebrated was for the 4-3 one, because that was for the winner, which is, for a game of that kind of intensity, Leeds celebrated because they went in the lead every time they scored. We were always equalising. But yeah, Don, what did you make of Bentancur's first?
The first, I think, is all on Kulusevski for great work. I saw an interview with him after with Spurs, and it was great because he was just saying how he was seeing the game like really well, and he was screaming at Sanchez to pass it to Kane because he knew Kane would free him up, which is the beauty of having Kane there, because he actually attracts 2 or 3 players and unlocks players like Kulusevski. And then I think he said the only time he was scared was when he actually passed it to Bentancur, because he was like, my job is done, but over to you. I could my rose-tinted glasses for Bentancur were fully there before he started adding goals to his game. So now for me, he's a complete player. And
I remember seeing his debut at Brighton. Him and Kulusevski when they came on at Brighton, and everyone was grumbling about them. Was like they were great then. You could see there was something about both of them then. So where those people saw that they weren't any good from that, I do not know. Because I remember
rejects, please.
Something there. You could see it. There was definitely something there. And then 2 minutes later, like you said, Kulusevski kind of. It was interplay with Kane, wasn't it? Kane passed it to Kulusevski.
Yeah.
Kulusevski did the guy and went to the byline. And watching it back so many times, Bentancur does so well to not hit it against Doherty, or for Doherty get in his way, because the two of them are very kind of close together, aren't they, when he kind of passes it in. But from when we equalised, the atmosphere in the stadium massively rose. People could feel that there was going to be going on for the winner, because we've been so used to scoring last minute winners near the end.
Negative, obviously, we've been moaning about the first half performances of late, which haven't been great, but ultimately on the other side of the coin, and I know it didn't transpire against Liverpool, but our players believe, don't they, it's getting towards the end, and when we're putting this pressure on, where we've got the negativity of keep conceding first and going 1 or 2-0 down, on the other end of the game, we've got that sort of like belief that if we keep going and we keep pushing, we've got the players to create and we'll get something. So, like I said in that as well, with that sort of like work in progress, if we can harness that earlier on and stop that, conceding, it'll all knit together. But yeah, I mean, Bentancur, the minute he even when he plays in a 2, his pressing is fantastic. He really pushes on, and he can beat a play. We've seen him in midfield sort of look to pass to someone, then thought, nah, and he just turns and he's off and he beats a player and he takes upfield. But yeah, when that is, I think Bissouma's been decent the last few games he's played, and I think Bentancur really, really benefits from when we sort of bring Bissouma in or we go to a 3 in midfield.
What do you make of Bissouma recently, Craig?
I think Gibbo's just hit the nail on the head. I think he's really starting to come to his own the last couple of games, and we're starting to see what we're going to get from Bissouma in the second half of the season, which is exciting, because I think, we've said he does free up Bentancur to play a little bit further up the pitch, and we see the benefit of that, and we've seen the benefit of that in the last few games as well. So I said at the beginning of the season on one of Gibbo's shows that I think that he will go on to be an established one of our midfield player by the end of the season. I don't see anything different to that. I think as the season goes on, and if Bentancur, if Bissouma continues to show the strengths he's playing, I think Conte will start to play with that 3 more regularly. And I think that'll be music to most Spurs fans' ears if we do see that. But certainly it's exciting, not just because of what Bissouma's bringing to his game, because I think he's been brilliant. It's what he does with the other players, not just Bentancur, Højbjerg as well. When he gives Højbjerg the freedom to get the pitch, we see benefits there as well.
He was winning a lot of second balls on Saturday, a lot, and there was the sending off, the foul was on him, wasn't it? But just the way he was kind of winning the ball back, you could really see, that he's kind of, if it is that he was having to learn the position that Conte wanted him to play, and you can see that he really seems to know that now. Because remember, didn't he have COVID as soon as they got into Korea? Then he missed some of the pre-season, didn't he? That's right.
But I think as well, Beck, in a more coherent unit, when you've got, say, Romero back in there, who's slightly more on the front foot and more aggressive, and maybe another 1 or 2 centre-backs in there with him, and maybe a wing-back that functions more, I think you've seen that Bissouma can drive forward with the ball. He can take your upfield more. He can sort of like beat a man and then push the other players up, because he's meant to be that holding midfielder. So, it's exciting when we do start getting those, better players in, and we do start functioning better. And as well, it's good to have options, isn't it? We don't have to, hopefully he can get to a point where we don't have to keep running Højbjerg and Bentancur into the ground. We can mix it up a bit. And if we can bring another, say, for instance, we got Skip as well. And say if we did bring, we play a 3. So I'm just throwing a name out there. But say if we did get someone like Maddison, then you can, in certain games, you can go like Bissouma, Højbjerg, Maddison, or Bissouma, Bentancur, Maddison. Do you know what I mean? Horses for courses. That's where we need to be getting. But I think Bissouma's been good. I think he's had a positive effect on the team the last few weeks.
People are starting to say, I've noticed on Twitter, that they're seeing the player that they saw last season for Brighton, and that's what they hoped we would get.
I've seen him numerous times absolutely dominate us for
in
2-3
Cup
seasons. Yeah, where he was excellent. And when the first few games he played, I thought, is this the same bloke?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because he did look really quite nervous as well, and he was always playing the safe option. But he's had a few inspired cameos where I think Marseille, he was really, really underrated, but really, really good.
Because he can pass the ball. Dom, I think he's got. There's more to his game than what we're seeing. But like in the FA Cup last year when we played him, I think we went 2 or 3-0 up. I can't remember. But it was in the second half, they come back into it. And it was like as if he decided, right, I need to drive this Brighton team on now, and I'm going to drive. And I think it was him who he had the shot, and did it deflect off someone? But he sort of drove up, didn't he? Drove up the pitch and had a shot, and he did that a couple of times. So there's more to come from Bissouma as well. I'm sure there is.
Right, so if we go back to Bentancur at the end, I don't know if you've seen it, Kulusevski's interviewed by the Spurs Play lot, isn't he? And he says that, like you said, he talked about the position of the ball and how he'd kind of seen it. And then on Match the Day, he's interviewed and he says that Bentancur's the most underrated midfielder in the world. And then I retweeted it and said, Bentancur probably says exactly the same thing about Kulusevski. We have lucked out so much with the two of them. What was really lovely, I thought, about in the stadium is obviously Kane celebrates, Bentancur celebrates. It's the first time they really celebrate because we went in front. But they all run over to Kulusevski, and now seeing the footage back of the way Kulusevski celebrates, and he does the kind of heart thing and he does the knee slide, and then everybody runs over to him. And I think Davis said in his post-match interview as well, didn't he, that there is this kind of unity within the team, and that kind of morale is there, and that sort of never say die sort of attitude. And they're buying into it. They may not always be able to execute what Conte is asking them to do, but there is that kind of belief that they are trying to. And I think Craig was saying there, the interview that Larissa said today, and Højbjerg, I think he put something on Instagram, didn't he, yesterday, say that, I can't remember the words exactly, but something along the lines of, we're starting to get on the right path of what we're trying to do. You know, it's been tricky, but we're, you know, and they're kind of buying into that sort of, which is why, coming back to what we said about the boos and all of that, it just seems such an overreaction.
Look, do you know, like you said, Beck, we've looked, you know, we have looked out with Bentancur and Kulusevski. They're quality players, but obviously, like Paratici, from some sections, you know, moaning about the signings he made. But didn't he take those two to Juventus? And then obviously he's seen that they're available. Yeah. So he's obviously come to Spurs, seen it, and thought, you know, I rate these two guys. They will be an asset to this team. And we had people who, after Kulusevski's first 20 minutes, were calling him a cart horse and saying he didn't have any pace. You know, so fair play. Paratici's seen that, brought them in, and they have elevated us. They elevated us to that top 4 finish.
This is where we need balance, Gibbo, isn't it? About, you know, we're quick to say, Royal, what a rubbish Paratici sign, he's responsible, and to pinpoint the poor signings that he's made. But overall, on balance, his signings have been so much more positive for Spurs, haven't they? No more so than those two players in Bentancur and Kudo.
And arguably for Perisic for set pieces, although Perisic maybe is not set the world up like going forward.
Absolutely, Beck.
What I've said earlier on, Gibbo, and one of Gibbo's shows, is what I like about Tottenham now is we have a strategy, we have a plan, we have a transfer plan, a transfer strategy, and we're seeing it now. And we're seeing even Perisic, he's been brought in with a specific purpose. It's a short-term stopgap to give us something now in the immediate term, but to have a longer lasting impact in terms of mentality on Cess and the wider squad. And we're seeing it. We see the way he is with the wider squad on Perisic, whether he's starting or not starting, the way he talks, the way he coaches the players as a player. It's just everything we're seeing at the moment is signs that we're on this journey and we are going to come out the other side of it, you know, in a really positive mindset. And we only need, like you said, I think people have said, we 2 or 3 more Kulus or Bentancurs, you know, not necessarily big money signings, you know, 60, 70, 80 million pound signings, but the right players for the right fit to do the right job. And suddenly we're a different team.
What we need to do now is when we make signings now, and hopefully this is what we will do, hopefully, and like I don't dislike Eric Dyer, he's had a poor month. But stuff like if we we need to buy a player now that comes in and makes Dyer that squad player.
Yeah.
Do you get what I mean?
He's got no what's the word? When people are trying to get in a position, no
competition.
Competition.
Yeah, he's got no competition. And competition at the top level, competition should enhance performance levels of all players. And then it's like if you bring someone in who sort of like pushes Dyer back, and when Dyer comes in, Dyer's a more than adequate replacement. Not just like, you know, with some players, like if Tanganga's got to come in or whatever, you're like, oh my God, I'm a bit worried. That's what we need to be doing now. Hopefully that will happen. I mean, we've been saying it for a long, long time. No club gets all their transfers right, though, do they? You know, nobody gets them all right. Every club makes stinkers. Even the top teams have, you know, bad signings or bad decisions. We've been saying it a lot, but we've got to hope now that the club's evolving. Paratici's come in. He did a good job at Juventus. We got Conte. You just got to hope that we're going to build on some of the good work we've been doing in the last year or so. And like Craig says here, he's right. You know, the Nuno appointment by Paratici was awful. Bang on. But they rectified it pretty quick, didn't they? That could have been left to linger and like, no, we're going to stick with this bloke. They realised they'd had an Uggy bear and got rid of him.
Yeah, we did. That's like it just seems such a long time ago, doesn't it? It was only like 12 months ago.
Thank God. Yeah. He was going to make us proud, wasn't he?
And yeah, so like we've sort of said already, you know, we would have been third had Chelsea hung on for a 0-0. So it was very positive coming out of the ground, I would say, after the final whistle. I loved Kane being in the corner for like what felt like the last 5 minutes, just played it in the corner and was getting free kick after free kick and throw in and all of that business. But I did say to my friend that I wish he'd just accidentally lashed out at somebody and got booked, because then he would have had the Brentford game off. And we talked about this last Monday. The nearer we get to, games that are now kind of going to come in January, we don't want him to be missing because of a suspension for those. So that's the only thing for me, because Bentancur got his, and Kane deserved his, his week off for Brentford, and he didn't get booked. But maybe
if anybody needs a break, that bloke needs a break.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, he's been running on fumes. Well, yeah, but we'll need him against Brentford. I know. It's we need him at the moment, Beck. We need him every game.
We always have done. Yeah,
that we have done for too long. For too long.
And we sort of said it tonight. Richarlison is not quite at that point yet to be that player that would be at the same level as Kane.
Yeah, and we haven't got the other players around him. We have got a few, but we've not got the whole team. That if Kane's out, you can say, right, Richarlison's playing up front. Kane's our main goal scorer and goal provider at the moment, isn't he? So, maybe if we sort that out, then we'll sort the issue where we always have to play Kane out. But
so, can you put up the Sonny pictures?
Gibbo, yes. Please?
So, for those people who haven't seen it, Sonny was there in his Burberry cardigan and his nice black glasses. And he was, for those of you that weren't in the ground, he was there when they were warming up before the game. And people were seeing him on the big screens. And at the end, he was sort of standing on the side, sort of hugging them all as they come off. And he was like roughing up Kulusevski in that one, proper hugging him, and then at Bentancur. But so like I said earlier on, we've seen footage of him in the dugout, and him and Sessa, like Kulusevski and Richarlison were, going through it when we weren't, when we were attacking, and Richarlison's jumping around. But it was so nice to see Sonny looking so delighted. And then the elephant in the room was that Romero wasn't there, it seems, at all. And then I think it was a video, wasn't it, on Sunday morning? I was watching the cricket, but I'm sure I saw a video of him arriving in it looked like a hot country. And then he tweeted a picture of himself that evening in his Argentina kit, something along the lines of "I've missed you and it's great to be back," or something like that. And then there was a kind of divide, and I diplomatically tweeted, "Everyone's got their own opinion. However, the negative comments, he will see them, whether he sees them directly or whether his team see them, and that is in the long term not exactly helpful. We love Romero. He's a cut above. He's a level above. But that kind of negativity doesn't bode well, for he might turn around then and think, well, as soon as I get my offer from Real Madrid, bye-bye, I'm off. So I tried to be kind of fairly diplomatic about it. It's not his fault Qatar is where it is, but we've had this before with Lo Celso. When we saw, I don't know, those of you that saw Richarlison's celebration when he got in the Brazil team, it must mean different things to them. Because and we said this before, Conte said last week that he would play with one leg. Dom, what's your take on the Romero thing, Dom?
I mean, I'm not surprised. I think, again, we are all Spurs fans, lifelong Spurs fans. Romero is not. So put ourselves in his shoes, and if we're playing for River Plate and England have got a World Cup coming, do we care that much? His English probably isn't that best. All he has to do is not translate the tweets and he doesn't see the hate. But I think there's also two-way pressure as well. I think from what I hear, the Argentinian Federation kind of put a lot of pressure on these players to act like divas and bend the rules and make themselves available like ahead of time, and that even extends to the likes of Messi. So Romero doesn't have the credit in the bank that Messi does, so I'm fairly sure he would have been getting the pressure to miss those few games, but I think he would have been more than happy to oblige. I just think it's stupid from him, that aside, to post that picture. Like, the optics of it, like, just do yourself a favour.
Do it after, do it today, do it tomorrow. Do you know what I mean? No one would even realise it was taken on Sunday, would they? Exactly.
He's just, stupidity more than anything.
Ill-advised. He needs to get a better team around him, doesn't he? Gibbo, you told me to go to you last. Craig, what's your take on it?
So I think overall, I think the tweet was ill-advised. I don't think, by the way, he had anything to do with that tweet. I think that was 100% his team that's put that tweet out, and it wasn't. He's not, personally sat on the plane thinking, I know what I'll do. I'll put a tweet out of me arriving. It's just not what he's done. His team have done the tweet, ill-advised, ill-timed. In the big, I agree with everything Dom said. I think he's spot on actually with the pressure that they put on the players to arrive early to training, and we seen it last time, didn't we, with the old during COVID times and what happened there with the arrival.
And they weren't allowed to go, were they? And they went anyway.
But they went
anyway because they was told to go. So he was always, if he was told to go, he's always going to go. He's always going to put his country before club. That's the reality of Argentinian players. So I've got no qualms with him overall. I think he's good in a Spurs shirt. I just think that his team have got to learn from that and get the optics right. And everything, you would like to have thought he would have made the effort to be in the stadium alongside Sonny supporting. But the context of everything Dom said, I don't blame him for not either.
Because Bentancur's posted a picture today holding up a Uruguay shirt. So Cantab's put there, what was the tweet? It was a picture of Romero in like a training. He's on grass. Yeah. Wearing like a training top, something like Argentina, I've missed you. But Romero's done one today holding up a Uruguay t-shirt, and he's managed to go after the game. And I think it was Kerry put earlier in the chat, I was quite surprised how bloodthirsty is the wrong word, but how kind of dedicated the game seemed on Saturday. There were tackles flying in, there were lunges, and I said to Jack, when Højbjerg was doing it in Bentancur, and I'm like, they're the type of ones you pull a groin or a hamstring goes, and it was quite, full on, and they weren't. And Davis was doing very similar. And then Romero wasn't even there. And I think that's what's annoyed people is there was that kind of endeavour to get the result.
Yeah. The only other thing for a bit of balance is we don't know what the extent of his injury was. And we don't, just because he's turned up in the country doesn't mean he's running around a football pitch playing 90 minutes tomorrow. There's still, a week or so before the World Cup starts. And we don't even know if he's going to start in the first game of the World Cup. We don't know, we said that's the other side of, we've got to put a bit of context to it and a bit of balance to it.
Very diplomatic.
Yeah, the optics aren't great overall. I think the tweet doesn't help things, but let's see, let's see what happens. He's got a week of training with the team, light training potentially, before he even has to go near a football pitch. So, bit of balance.
So go on then, Gibbo. What's your take?
He'll be fit. He'll be fit for Argentina. So I don't think there's even a debate. Romero is our best defender.
Yeah,
quality player. Yeah. He makes us a better team. He sets us on the front foot, and when he's on the pitch, he puts it in. But why on earth is that is just ridiculous. Him going out there and doing that. He should have been with the team. Like we said, Son was there. The other players were there when they were injured. He could have flown out there after the game. If he's not fit, which he was deemed not fit enough to play for Tottenham Hotspur, then why is he out there in a training kit training? Because if he was sort of like at that level where he was even having, even just doing light training, he should have been with Spurs until after the game. When it's done and dusted, now all players go out off to your clubs. Why does he have special treatment just because he's Argentinian and they put pressure on him? Tottenham Hotspur pay his wages, regardless of what people think. And I totally understand that he is playing in a World Cup for his country, and it is a big, big thing for those players. And maybe even more important to play for your country over your club than, players in this country. But
then if you flip that with Richarlison, is delighted to be in the Brazil squad. The point you made there about him, it's the opportunity to play in the World Cup when he comes around 4 years. He's jumping around when he.
This is my opinion. Sorry, Craig. I'm just finished, mate. Sorry. This is only my opinion. I think it shows with the tweet, which he never. There's no way he put that out. Their teams do that. For me, this is only my own personal. It shows a lack of commitment and a lack of respect to Tottenham Spurs. This is my opinion. May well have been agreed that he could go out earlier. We don't know, but it still doesn't sit right with me. And I just think there's people who will defend these players and that. But at the bottom line, let's be honest. It's a job, and I've got over this a long time ago. Like I said before, when we were here, Bale. Bale will give us one more season. I think he loves the club. He'll stay one more season. The minute Real Madrid flashed their arse at him, he checked out. And and the GOAT, Harry Kane, he'll be our greatest ever goal scorer. But when Man City came calling, he decided, that's it for me. I'll go and play for them. I'll see what I can do to get myself out of the club. And it just winds me up about modern day footballers and everything.
You forgot to mention Eriksen. Eriksen
as well. They're all bang at it. They're all bang at it. But that really, really annoyed me because we could have. I'm not saying that he feigned injury.
The tweets that I've seen today, we've all just adhered to, and Dom said it before. We're all lifelong Spurs fans.
Yeah.
We are in this forever, whether we like it or not.
Yeah.
And you feel a bit hurt. I think that's what people felt. They felt a bit hurt. And really, we probably should just get on with it. And it's just football, and it is the way things are.
I think he's genuinely thought, got a little bit of muscle fatigue here. I genuinely think, and there's other players who haven't done that because I love Højbjerg. People know that I stick up for him a lot, but there's no way he would have done that. Kane's on his last legs, and he's still putting a shift in for Spurs. And I'm not saying that Romero couldn't have been fit to play against Leeds. He may well had muscle fatigue, and now he's just easing himself back in the day after Spurs games finished, ready for next week to play. It could be a coincidence, but it just didn't sit well with me. And I don't cover for players. I don't make excuses for them because at the end of the day, Spurs pay his wages, so he should be there until he should have to do the same as every other player. Rant over.
All that taking all that on board, Gibbo, which I don't disagree with anything you've said. Aren't we doing a disservice though to Conte here a little bit? Do you really think Conte, the manager that he is, would tolerate that if that was what happened? I don't believe Conte would for a second. I don't believe he would sit aside and accept him pulling a fast one of I've got a little bit of muscle fatigue for all the and I'm not saying anything you said is wrong, Gibbo, by the way.
No.
I think Conte's got more about him than that. He wouldn't tolerate that. He wouldn't.
And he came out with that thing, didn't he, last week, and said that he would play, and if he had one leg, he would play. And I've seen a lot of people say I didn't notice it at Sporting, I must admit. Saying that he was really injured at Sporting.
He was fit. He would have been in that squad. Is my take on it.
But he could have said, mate. They said he's struggling with muscle fatigue. Yeah.
I'll be honest with you, Gibbo, I'm not sure what it is. Yeah, I'll take your word on that.
They were saying muscle fatigue, which is fair enough. But there's other players who were probably fatigued. And like you're saying, would Conte, he might have said, I'm not fit. I can't play. And Conte's like, well, I'm going to need him at some point. He's one of my better players. Or he might have do you know what I mean? There might be something. But, mate, I just think it shows a lack of commitment to Spurs. And I think that, he's one of those for me that I'm trying to think. Like you said earlier, where Argentina, you're not meant to go and play for Argentina. We don't want you to go. He still went, mate. They dragged him up. The police dragged him off the pitch, mate. He shouldn't have even been there.
But we didn't have this. We didn't have this conversation then, though, did we?
Well, no. But
I'm just in context to it. We didn't. I don't remember Spurs fans, and maybe they were, but I don't remember Spurs fans.
Yeah, I saw some. I think the trouble is already because the season's half stopped. People have already got nothing to talk about, and that's the problem. That's why it's probably a good point to bring this in. Mentioning Ronaldo. Right, Ronaldo's timing of the video being released today is no coincidence either. So it's almost like as if no one they've got nothing else to talk about. Well, let's just do that. And yeah, I think like we said before about Richarlison, he's jumping around on the sideline when he was supposedly injured, and it was making me kind of flinch. So I was like thinking he's going to hurt himself. So I was surprised to see him. Like Kerry said the same thing. I was surprised to see him on Saturday. Certainly playing. I know he came off partway through, but he was another one. He could have he played for us at Liverpool. He played at Forest, didn't he? That's right. They could arguably have, rested him for Saturday, and he didn't, and he played. So I think he's South American, and Bentancur's from Uruguay. It's just I don't know.
They are different.
I agree. Everything you've just said, I don't disagree with any of it. It's
a lot of people do say, Beck, that they're South Americans. They see it a different way, and that's fair enough. And it's a World Cup for your country, and I think they've got a very good chance of winning it. So I totally understand he wants to be there and be his best. It just doesn't sit well with me. It just doesn't feel that it's been done in the correct manner. All the
timing's a bit wrong, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and I'm always going to be club over,
Yeah. Let's park that there, and let's move on to another disaffected person. So Ronaldo's done this interview, which I haven't even seen, but I've seen snippets enough of it, and even BBC app has picked it up and quoted bits of him. Dom, would you take him on a 6-month contract if we, I don't know, sold a kidney to pay for him?
God, no, absolutely not. I think I don't think he can accept that he's not the player he used to be. So with that, you get the ego of one of the best players of all time, but you don't get the player. So yeah, absolutely not. And unless he wants to do a bit of charity work and play for us for a third or a quarter of the wages, I don't see it happening. I don't want it to happen.
Because we couldn't afford Eriksen's wages, could we? We wouldn't be able to afford Ronaldo's. Craig, what's your take on all of that over there?
I think he's a petulant man, baby, and he doesn't get his own way, and this is his way of lashing out, isn't he? And I also think that Piers thinks Ronaldo's his love child or something. I don't know. There's a weird thing going on between the two of them, but I mean, all in all, you can't, as an employee of a football club, ultimately, at a club that he allegedly says loves and adores and everything else, act in the way that he did it. It's just, if that was one of the Spurs players, I'd be fuming. If that was Kane, for example, I would be absolutely fuming. Danny Rose, yeah. And it's just petulance from his part. He doesn't like it. He's not the big dog anymore. I think he can't accept that he's getting on, and he's not the player that he was, and he can't contribute in the Premier League in the way that he did in previous seasons. And Ten Hag, to his credit, has come in. He isn't the number one pick for Ten Hag. He's not even the second or third pick in sometimes, and he just doesn't like it, and he wants out the club. And this is his mechanism for doing it. And the timing's perfect, isn't it? He's not going to go back to Carrington now until, after the mid-December, or probably never now, because he'll go into January transfer window. No doubt they'll get a mutual agreement and he'll leave on a free.
Because he made that comment, didn't he, near the end of August, and said, in 2 weeks' time, you'll find out what's gone on. And then that never really kind of materialised into anything, did it, Matt?
No, listen, what he's done is ridiculous. Man United, the whole issue could have been resolved if they'd have let him go. Ten Hag didn't want him at the start of the season. He wanted to leave. If Man U would have let him go, they wouldn't be in the situation they're in now. But I don't condone what he did. It's ridiculous. I can't stand Piers Morgan either. So the whole thing is horrible. But I'm going to be different from everyone else. If he would accept a certain role and you could afford him, I'd take him all day of the week. I'd rather have him coming on than Mora. I'd rather have him coming on than Brian Hill. I think he knows where the back of the net is still. And if you could say, look, this is it, 6 months, you're away from Man United. We need what we need you for is involved in this squad. If he'd do that, I doubt very much he would.
Has he ever played under Conte? Has he ever been?
No, but Paratici took him, brokered the deal, got the deal to get him to Juve. It's never going to happen, but absolutely, I'd have him in the squad if he would accept that role and toe the line, which I'm not sure he would. But
here's a question for the panel.
What's a player?
I've nicked it off somebody else, but who's been our player of the season so far? Dom?
Bentancur for me. Yeah, he's been amazing. As I said, late he's added goals. Him and Højbjerg, to be honest, have been an amazing tag team. Been dragging us through many games. But for me, it has to be Bentancur.
Bentancur's scored, is it 4 goals for us now this season, or is it 5? I forget now. And he,
5.
And he only scored 4, didn't he, in 192 appearances before. So that kind of transformation. I think for him, I remember the first time he had a shot for us and it skied off and it went off into South Stand. And I remember turning to Jan going, "Oh, he's not used to scoring." Craig, who's been your player of the season?
It's a tough one. Højbjerg for me. I just think he's been phenomenal.
Craig knows his stuff.
Yeah, I said at the beginning of the season, didn't I, Gibbo, to be fair? He's the main man in Conte's system, and I think he's been phenomenal. I think he's improved leaps and bounds from last season, and I think when he's not been in the team this year, we've really missed him. I would argue we've missed him in the midfield as much as we miss Kulu in the front three, and that's a big impact. So, definitely 100% Højbjerg for me, but Bentancur is a very, very close second.
Gibbo?
I'm going Højbjerg. I think Bentancur has probably overshadowed him the past month, but he was good at the start of the season. But I think overall consistency levels, I'd go for Højbjerg. Like I said, if Bentancur had probably the form he's showing now, if he'd have probably taken that back a couple of months, it would have been him. There's not a lot in it, but I just think consistently over from the start of the season till now, Højbjerg has been our most consistent player, and Bentancur's probably having a bigger impact than him at the moment. But you know, we sort of switched tactics a bit. And you got Kane as well. I don't think Kane's played well, but you know, bagging the goals, isn't he? So, but yeah, I'm going Højbjerg. What about you, Beck?
When I voted Bentancur as well, and then didn't see it for ages. Went back to it, and loads of people were saying the disrespect that Kane gets from Spurs fans. They don't deserve him, and yada 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 yada. It's got to be Kane, and you know everyone forgets that if Kane hadn't done all the things he's done this season, we wouldn't be anywhere near where we were. And then I thought, so it's interesting that you said then Kane at the end, because he has.
I agree with you. I agree. Sorry, Beck, but I agree with you, and I've said this before. I think we do take him. I don't think we disrespect him. I think we just take him for granted.
I don't either.
And I think like
because the standards are so high for him, aren't they?
Yeah. And somebody said to me before, "Who's your most underrated player?" And I've said Kane, because I believe he is. Goes about his business, and we take him for granted. We don't disrespect him. I think he gets taken for granted.
Yeah, I agree. And I was saying that I keep forgetting him. It's because it's a busy time of the year for me this at school now. But are we 5 goals or 6 goals away from Greasy now? I forget. And he's only.
They haven't mentioned it for a bit, have they?
No, even though he scored on Saturday. Usually when they score, somebody then updates it and says how close he is. But I saw something the other day that he was, I think, it was 14 behind Rooney in 194 or something. Fewer appearances, and you know people forget things like that as well. I know he's trying to reach Shearer, isn't he? But you know the way he's kind of caught Rooney up as well for club. You know it's just phenomenal. And like we said, you know it's great. We've talked about this all season. Last year we relied on Son and Kane too much, and it's so great that we've got goals from all over the pitch now.
When Bale was in his prime and in his pomp for us, we relied on him too heavily, and there were times when we ran him into the ground. And it's pretty much what we've done with Kane. And he's going to have a couple of days off and then go and play for England. And you know what I mean? If like Adrian's right, we'd be screwed without him. He's not only our main sort of like goal contributor. I think he's probably the passes he makes and the things he does. He's our biggest sort of like creative spark as well, isn't he? No matter what the other players do, and great player. I'm not going to give him, because I think he can play better than he has been. I think he can play better, and that's not me. Yeah,
but then you think that's why we've picked Højbjerg and Bentancur as a panel first, because they as two players are players that are playing above what we expect of their levels. You know, they're overperforming in different aspects of their game. For Kane, he's on a different level. He's on a different planet to the rest of it. He's our best player by a mile. No doubt. You know, and we expect more from Kane, and therefore, you know, and he's not had a bad season. He's scored good goals. I think he's been overshadowed by Haaland doing something which, you know, was ridiculous.
Playing for a team who literally he's playing,
and that's why I think, you know, so it's not about disrespecting Kane or undervaluing Kane at all. I think we've got none of us do that, but I think we just recognise that we're getting so much more out of Bentancur and Højbjerg than we expected to get.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Right. One is a little nugget for you. One of the weirdest things for me on Saturday is that we went back to the pub after the game. Is the amount of people that wish Jack a Merry Christmas. It happened about 7 times on Saturday. Yeah, that was one of the weirdest things. And then, of course, we got home in time for match of the day, and they were talking about how that if you're top of the Christmas tree at Christmas and blah, 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 blah. It was the 12th of November that Arsenal, are going to be top of Christmas. It's the 12th of November. But yeah, being wished Merry Christmas was so it feels like I should end the show by saying I'm going to wish everybody a Merry Christmas. But we aren't finishing the shows there, are we? Gibbo, have you got things lined up?
Yeah, we've there's a few of us who are trying to put some shows on during the World Cup. We've got 2 shows this week, and we're going to preview all 8 groups. We've got 4 on Wednesday, and we've got 4 on Friday, and we've got some guests coming in from different parts of the world. We've got like a Serbian guy, we've got a Uruguayan, I think we've got Dutch, possibly German, Canadian, Australian coming on to give their views about their team's chances and the groups they're in. And then when the World Cup starts, we're hoping to do shows most nights, shorter than the ones we do now, but just reviewing the games that have been on that day and previewing the next ones and just giving our opinions, looking at players, seeing if there's players we think would fit in at Spurs or who we'd like to see aside from the games we've watched. You do a good job and obviously monitor our players. But it's just going to be hopefully for people to tune in and just, just keep content coming out from the cheese room. But hopefully we can get people from all over the place involved. And there'll be a few old faces. I'm sure Craig will come on, and I've asked Dom if he fancies coming on. I know you're having a break, aren't you? Bet you're going off to a summer training camp.
Warm weather training. No,
warm weather training.
No, I'm having a winter break. School's too busy at Christmas. It's just constant and shows, and then obviously my kids' shows, and so and I wouldn't be any use. I'd only talk about Son and Bentancur and Richarlison, and I wouldn't be any use. So give it to somebody. I'll happily listen along and learn rather than being here.
But if you guys are in, sorry, Beck, but hopefully if people are in the comments and you've got friends from any of these places and you just want to listen and talk about football and not Spurs, invite them along, and we'll try and answer as much as we can.
It seems like a good point then to ask for people's predictions for the World Cup. Dom, I start with you.
I haven't thought outside of England, to be honest. I think it's going to go somewhere in South America, though. Mainly as most of them had a good rest.
And they'd be used to the weather a bit as well, wouldn't they, you think?
Yeah, so I think Brazil.
Okay, Craig?
Uruguay. What am I talking about? Argentina.
First answer only.
No, it's because I've just had someone WhatsApp me a bet for the England, and they had Uruguay, and it's like, but anyway, definitely Argentina.
Gibbo, same?
Quarterfinals at least for England. If they don't get to the quarterfinals, then it is a really poor show.
Disaster.
Moping Southgate doesn't get sacked and then Conte walks from Spurs, because I do not want to end up with our Southgate. But I fancy Argentina as well. I think it's sort of like Messi's last shot. They've got some good players, haven't they? Obviously Romero and some other good players. And I'm just hoping, I'm just looking forward. I'm just hoping the tournament will be a decent tournament to watch.
Saw a tweet today that they've been kind of paying the locals to support different teams, and they've been giving them the kits and all of that stuff. The thing that's good for that is that it will be an atmosphere, because I was saying this to my Dave. You don't want stadiums with no atmosphere. It's going to be a kind of odd, almost artificial kind of World Cup as it is. At least that way there will be some atmosphere. I've got Australia in the sweepstake. So
what a waste of a quid.
That didn't go down very well. Yeah, I think it was £2. I think it was £2. Yeah, but I got Australia. So, but I was saying to someone today, I want England and Wales to get out of our group. And then, I think, do we get France then? Do we get France in the quarterfinals?
No,
I've seen a dial thing.
if we go through our group, shouldn't we play someone out of like Qatar, Ecuador, out of that group in the last 16? So you'd be expecting us to go through that. Then the quarterfinals, just got to play. You got to play then, haven't you? So, but yeah, at the minute, I don't think we'll get past the quarterfinals, but I'll maybe be surprised.
Okay, I think it's time to wrap up. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We've had some great comments in the chat. We didn't necessarily put them all up, but we have been reading them. Thank you, Zach, because it really does help the show, having people making comments and things. Thanks, Dom, for your help. That was great. It was great to have your take on it. Hopefully you can come back on lots more times.
For sure, my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me, guys. Remind
everybody where they can find you.
As Dom Collins 94 on Twitter, and if you fancy listening to another podcast after the Cheese Room, obviously, to There Is to Discuss, and across all good podcast places.
Fab. Craig, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me back on, Becky. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, and Matt, thanks again as well.
No problem. Thanks for having me on, Becky. Thanks for being a wonderful host, and enjoy your break.
I will. I'll still be watching all the sport. On Sunday, I was watching the cricket, and then I watched the lunchtime game, and then I watched the 2 games after that. So I'll still watch all the games, and I'll join in on the comments and things as well. Are you pressing the buttons to see us out, Matt?
I will see us out. So if you just get everybody to say, "Come on, you Spurs," Beck, I'll press the buttons.
And come on, England, and come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.